The night I came back from Vegas, I was indicted. And when I came there, she was working for my father as a waitress in my father's restaurant, the Highway Lounge. And I said, "Where's Jimmy Nap?" And she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm his son from Vegas." She said, "Why the hell don't you go back to Vegas? You're trouble, I hear. And why don't you leave that man alone?" "Who the hell are you?" I said, "Give me the keys to this joint." So I told her, "I'll throw you the hell out of here." And now it was closing time. I said, "You closing this place up?" She said, "Yes, I am." So I knew the combination of the safe in the kitchen. I went in the kitchen and took all the money out. I had no money on me. I just flew in from Vegas. And she wouldn't tell me where my old man was, but I didn't want to call him at his house because it was late at night, and I didn't want to talk to my stepmother on the phone. So I called the car service. Actually, I didn't have to call the car service. They told me on the phone the car's on its way because Laura already called the car service to take her home. She was closing up when I got in there. So now I locked the doors. I chased the car guy, the driver. I said, "Now you get out of here." I said, "I'll take her home, you know." And I was going to call the car service anyway. And I grabbed her, and I played the jukebox. And the first song that come on was Sammy Davis Jr., "I Gotta Be Me." So I said, "Dance with me now." She said, "Is that an order?" I said, "You can consider what you want. You're the only female in here. And even if there was a guy, I wasn't going to ask a guy to dance with me. I said, I'm telling you, dance with me." And she did. And before you know it, she said, "Play that song again." So I knew I had it then, you know. So that's what happened there. And I was called the prodigal son for the first time by her, Laura.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And obviously, that beautiful woman became your wife. So that's wonderful. That's an amazing story.
And 16 years in sobriety, and she's in sobriety, and she was never an alcoholic, but she went to therapy at the VA hospital also to learn how to live with an alcoholic.
Yeah.
She helped me, yes.
That's amazing. You know,
but she doesn't let me forget either.
And good for her, you know. You had a nickname for your dad when you would talk to him. You would call him Daddy-O?
Yes. What happened was this. The last 7 years, when he was 65 till he was 72, he was in Danbury, Connecticut. Then he was transferred to Lewisburg jailhouses. And he would send for me, but I was busy drinking. I had $250,000 a week in number action. And I knew if I go to see him, I knew he was going to bawl me out about taking so much business away from his supervisors that weren't paying. And they were blood related. So I waited 3 months before I finally went to see him in Lewisburg. When I was drinking all night, and I was drinking martinis in the afternoon, dews and soda, dews on the rocks with a splash of soda at night to cool my esophagus. I knew I was a professional drinker. I never considered myself an alcoholic. I never drank in cars. I never drank on the subway, only in restaurants, well, and at home. So now when I get to the visiting room with two of his crewmen that drove me there, 3.5-hour drive, and they're trying to sober me up by going 80 miles an hour and opening the back window so the air hits my face, and it really did, until a helicopter called the State Highway Patrol to stop us. We were speeding. So anyway, after that we got to Lewisburg, and in the visiting room was Jimmy Burke, who Robert De Niro played in Goodfellas. And then there was another boss from the Gambino family. And I don't want to mention their names. I think they're still doing time. Well, anyway, no, maybe not. They're probably gone. But their families are alive. So when I get there, I said, and you sit in, the prisoners sit with their back against the wall, and they have little tables like this for each visitor, but you couldn't have more than 3 visitors at a time, and each one. But the men, the prisoners, used to get together and say, "Call your family," so this way they could come the same day that my family's coming, so you and I could talk to each other. They'll think we're talking to the family. So the prisoners would set that up in the visiting room, so this way they could talk to each other. You see, the only time they could talk to each other was not in the chow hall, but an hour a day in the recreation yard, you know. But now they would be there. I would come in there, and I'd say to my father, "Dad, you want me?" He said, "Before you were born, I wanted you. And to think you were born on Mother's Day. What the hell kind of a gift are you? How the hell are you doing these things you're doing and you're getting away with it? Dad, if you had a daddy like I got, you'd do anything you want. Jimmy Burke stands up, this boss stands up, they're all doing time together, and hug and kiss me. They said, Jimmy, this is something special, this guy. So, but there were times I used to call him Daddy-O, with a little humor. He didn't like it that much, but later on, he started calling me Daddy-O. He said, listen, Daddy-O. And he always talked with his hands shaped like a gun. Yeah, he would always talk this way when he wanted to stress something. Always, never raise his voice, never sweat. He had low blood pressure, that's why. Never sweat, and he would talk like this, usually with the left hand. And he'd have a cigarette, and all those years, never smoked. But he'd have a cigarette, he'd take one from your pack, put it in the ashtray, put it in his mouth, never light it. So the trademark was, do you know Jimmy Nap? What's one of his traits? He puts a cigarette in his mouth, never lights it. Especially when they came out with the filter cigarettes, he used to buy them. In Creashy's restaurant, that cigarette fell on the floor. The lady that was sitting there with her husband that had a problem, she bends down and picks up the cigarette, and my father said, oh, don't worry about it, I'll get a new one, I'll bite on it. She said, no! She put it in a napkin, she saved it till today, whoever she is. She wanted to save it as a memorabilia from Jimmy Nap, because my father, when she left, said, she's probably an agent. She wants my fingerprints.
or later on, DNA. You never know.
Yeah.
But, you know, you showed a lot of rage through your drinking as an adult. What about as a child? Was there any rage that you showed as a child?
Yeah. Well, when you say a child, how old?
Adolescents, 10, 12, 14 years old.
Yeah. I was considered a mama's boy in grammar school because my mother was always there fighting for me against the nuns. I went to Catholic grammar school. Then later on, I went to public school. I went to 8 grammar schools because my mother kept taking me out of there because this is what happened. The kids used to say, oh, you're a mama's boy. Your mother's always here for you. And I beat them up. So I learned how to fight opposite from what fighters say how they learned how to fight because I was called a mama's boy, so I'd fight them. It happened when I worked that captain over who became an inspector in Union City, New Jersey, who tried to shake me down.
That's my next question. That's great.
So that's what happened. When I worked him over, he tried to shake me down for $500 a week at the Club Ragdoll. I had Jimmy Roselli working for me, and guys like I had Danny DeVito and Joe Pesci, guys like that. They were entertainers then. Joe Pesci was a singer in a quartet. He worked for me at the Ragdoll too. I had ex-fighters working for me as bartenders. I had 6 bartenders. No food, a dance floor in the back, and 72 bar stools around it, and I had topless go-go girls, too, at the time. And I had to pay off for that because you couldn't show topless in those days. But then I had entertainment like Jimmy Roselli singing Malavemina and Ustacha Vigina May and stuff like that. Well, this cop comes in, this captain, to shake me down. He says, your father's gone. I said, what do you mean my father's gone? I know he's on a lam, but I'm not going to tell this guy that. He said, it's been 2 weeks, I haven't seen him, and I don't get an envelope. You're going to start paying me. I know my father told me, never pay anybody off. We take care of those things for you. So I told the cop, I didn't want to give up that my father, where he's at, he's on a lam. Let him think that because there was a killing in the neighborhood. And whenever there was serious things like that, my father would go on a lam. Not that he was guilty of it, so he doesn't get questioned until they find who it was, and then he would come back. So now I tell the guy, meet me at the Capri Club about 6 blocks up. I don't want my guys, my crew members see me giving you a dime, you Irish bastard, I called him. He was Irish. Not that I hate the Irish. I made love to Irish girls, so how could I hate them? Well, anyway, I went to the parking lot with one of my crew members, and they used to call me a good puncher. I had a blackjack that was flat and a black leather, cover with black leather, and inside the black leather was lead. And I had a strap around, and I would go in my pocket, take it out, and slap the guy at the side of the head and knock him out. I got that from a detective. That's what the detectives in those days used to use. That's the blackjack they would use. So now, When I got in the parking lot, I got out of the car, my crew member was there. That cop showed up alone. He had a piece on him. As soon as I went over, I said, I got the envelope in my pocket. I reached out, bang! My crew member took his gun.
Now, this cop was a captain.
He was a captain. After that, he got promoted to inspector, by the way, because he lived after that. But for some reason or other, he got promoted. I'll tell you what happened. So I go back to the Club Ragdoll, and I had an office underneath, a hidden office that I used to have my romance at and private sit-downs at. So now somebody gave that up because here come the squad cars, here comes the shotguns. They come down, and that to get into that office underneath in the basement, you had to go through the hat check room and lift up the trap door and go down the steps. Sometimes that door was left open on purpose to throw somebody down there. But anyway, they came down after me. They locked me up. They put me in jail. No bail. And who comes into jailhouse? My mother. In Union City, New Jersey jailhouse. And here comes my mother with chicken soup. Homemade chicken soup. To give to me while I'm in my cell.
A true Italian mother.
Yeah, and she paid that sergeant off a $100 bill so she could come in the back with a folding chair and sit in front of my cell. They couldn't open my cell because that cop was dying in jail, in the hospital, you know. And she's giving me the chicken soup. The other prisoner yelled, "Look at that! He works over a cop." The captain of the police department and his mommy brings him chicken soup. My mother got up off her chair and she said, "I also not only have the folding chair and your chicken soup, the sergeant gave me the keys to open it. I'll let him out and he'll do to you what he did to the sergeant if you don't shut up." That was my mother.
Whether I'm right or whether I'm
If you like the Tony Nap interviews, you will have to read his book, My Father, My Don. There is much more information than what was in the interview, and I am sure, like me, you won't want to put the book down. So to find out how to purchase this amazing true story, just go to Tony's website at www.myfathermydon.com.
I want to live, not merely survive.
Segment 9 will not disappoint you. Tony talks about a reflection on his life, a man named Tony Rio, and saving the best for last, the brutal incident at the college his daughter was attending. You won't want to miss this episode, and I promise you, you will be shocked at what Tony did. So I hope you're not squeamish. See you for the last episode of Tony Nap, My Father, My Don.
Prize, a world of success is waiting for me if I heed the call. Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world or never belong, I gotta be me, I gotta be me. What else can I be but what I am?
What inspired you to write such an incredible book? I mean, and I mean incredible.
While I was writing the book, I was going to write about myself and my life and the 9 different occupations I had in life as a hustler, a bagman, a fighter, a soldier, and whatnot. Now, as I got going, I hired 3 writers, and all individually, not all at one time, and each one I hired, and I paid them and dismissed them with a fee. Every time I got to the point, I started thinking more and more of my father, because my story originally was about Tony Rio. That was me, and why I became Tony Rio. And after I worked that captain over in Union City, New Jersey, and how I was on that bus to St. Louis with only $50 in my pocket. And I was going to write about Tony Rio and his adventures in New Mexico, Route 66, Amarillo, Texas, Santa Rosa, in Santa Fe, and how I did time out there. I was never going to mention my name Napoli until the end of the story, but you know what happened as I went along in life? I became a recovering alcoholic, because this is before I became a recovering alcoholic that I was going to write about Tony Rio. What inspired me, believe it or not, were relatives of wise guys. Not my relatives, my mother in the beginning, but there was so much more to add since 1961 when she passed away, because I'm alive today, and that was like 40 some odd years ago. So now it was wise guys themselves, before they became buttons, before they became capos, that I used to drink with, said, Tony, you're so interesting, you should do your life story before you ever take the oath. Once you take the oath, you know, it's hard to tell your story, because you're breaking the oath and you're on the hit parade. You get whacked out. But nobody could ever say I took the oath. I was on the honor roll, my father stopped it. And my father said, I'm going to make sure you don't get hit in the head, so you're not going to swear in and take that oath.
One of the reasons why you decided to quit drinking and end the violence, and that had to do with an incident at your daughter's college.
Yeah, there was a punk that, on my daughter's 19th birthday, today she's a school teacher with 2 master's degrees. She lives with me. She's 34 years old. And she went to Queensboro Community College. And on her 19th birthday, one boy gave her a box of candy. Another boy gave her flowers. And in between classes, she went to the girls' room and she got sexually assaulted in front of the girls' room. The only thing that stopped the punk was 2 other girls were walking in the hallway, and he ran away afterwards. When I found out, and I was out drinking, and I found out from my oldest daughter what happened the next morning when I got home, I got a hold of my daughter, and I said to her, I know what happened. Now you're going to point the punk out to me, and then one of my crew members is going to drive you back home. I said, but your mother told me you went to the doctors, everything, you're all right, this and that. But your mother told me you're all bruised up. So she said, Daddy, I don't want to go. You're going to kill him. I don't want that. She said, then it's going to be even worse for me. I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to use him as an example. She said, but I know what you mean by that. I said, you're going back to school. He just caused you not to go to school this morning. You're afraid of him, and I'm going to make sure he don't go to school, to the same school. He's on a green card, she said, from Sicily. I went there. I got the punk against the wall. There was another door on the right of me and on the left. I saw exit sign here. I didn't see nothing over there, over that. I grab him, and he says, who the fuck are you? And I said, you'll find out who I am. And I threw him, and he went through the wrong door. He went into a classroom. They're dissecting a frog while I'm dissecting him. So now, and I threw the knife on the floor, but I made sure I cut his nipples, his rear end, and I didn't cut his penis off because I was holding the freaking thing when I was slicing. But he'll never reproduce another monster like himself. The college professor in the classroom ran out the door. Till today, never came back. He's from London, 21 students went to court. They put me in the VA hospital under bail, $250,000. And for 8 months, the doctors were saying that I'm not ready to testify in my own behalf. Barry Slotnick with school, my court appointed, about cross-examining 21 witnesses against me, the kids that were in the classroom. After 8 months, every one of them became hostile witnesses. They wouldn't testify what they said in the beginning after they found out the probable cause.
But there was a chance you could have gotten completely out of it because of why?
Yeah. If I didn't take the witness stand to help the jurors out, there would have been a not guilty verdict according to the alternate jurors, because the students gave me different descriptions. They changed their story from 8 months previous to the DA, and they became hostile witnesses for the DA, and the case should have been dismissed, could have been dismissed. But I didn't want that. I said, listen, I told the jurors, and I told Judge Joan O'Dwyer, let me take that witness stand. And they put me on a witness stand, and I said to the DA, I said, now the judge knows that you're not supposed to tell me to answer yes or no, that I have to give a scenario because I'm not that well yet. And I stood up to the jurors, and I said to all of them, you're not going to meet my daughter. I made a deal with the DA. But you will meet my daughter when you go home tonight, and meet your daughter and your grandchild when they go out tomorrow morning to school, to say, oh, look how